Hello students, I hope you guys are doing good. I'm recording this video for the second coursework brief for your management and cost accounting coursework. You're about to submit your coursework and I hope that you have done all of the preliminary work, for example, calculating the ratios and have written all the discussion and analysis, because that's where you should be at this point. And at this point, ideally, you should be thinking about finalizing the coursework. And for that, there is already a video which you should see how to finalize ratio analysis. So, because you in your work for your coursework is not directly on ratio analysis, but you are using three ratios, which are inventory days, receivable days, and payables days. So quite a lot of that video, which is on ratio analysis, is applicable on your coursework as well. So make sure you watch that video, because it's going to guide you a lot on how to finalize your coursework and maybe to get marks higher than 70%. Another video which can be very useful is how to reference your ratio analysis. Again, at the end of at the stage where you're finalizing your coursework, you should be looking at referencing your work properly. So that video is also relevant. In this video, I'm going to review 4 pieces of coursework which were submitted by the previous students, and each of those coursework, they had some positive points and then they had some negative points. So I would like to highlight those points. I would also tell you what level of marks each work got. So the first one, let's open up the one which is best in the sample. It's not the best of all. It does have many positive areas, but there are still many issues which could be addressed and improved. So just take it as a guideline. It's not a best practice. It's not the best work I've seen, and it is not the best structure and report you are seeing, but it's one of the good ones, and the marks were more than 70%, which you should be aiming for. So as you can see, the first thing is title of the work, which does matter. It's a report, so these things do matter. So try to get a good title page. I often comment on the work which was submitted before without the title page as meeting somebody without a head. So do have a cover page, please, for your work. Then contents page is a report, so contents page is important. This content page is very simple. It's not the best I have seen. It has some weaknesses. I think it could have a bit more details given under each main headings, but these are broadly the areas which you can see in a report for your coursework. So it does meet the criteria, but it's not an exceptional work. It's still, overall, the work still got more than 70% marks. Moving on to executive summary. Now, many students confuse executive summary with an abstract or with introduction. Is neither of those. It is an executive summary. An executive summary is a 1 page for our work. It must be 1 page, not less than that, not more than that. And it should give the reader the idea about the work and also the main points of the work. Normally, I would read it at the start to see how much I could grasp from this report. From your overall work. So a bit of introduction, a bit of methodology, maybe first paragraph on the basics, and then the rest of the work should be on the actual work. I think it's a weak one. I would not give it more than 6 marks. The graph looks good, but I think it's taking a bit too much space for the work. There is too much stuff in one graph. I would divide this graph into 2 different graphs just to keep things simple and a bit more scale wise, a bit more obvious, because one of the company has really high OCC or inventory days in gray, 600, 550. So I would maybe show them separately. And the final graph is also, the final bit is also, I don't think it's very convincing. It gives me very little. So it looks good. It ticks all of the boxes, but overall, I think it can be improved significantly. Introduction is about introduction to your work and introduction to your companies. Again, it does give me that introduction to the topic, companies, and your work. It does all of that. It is lacking in giving me a clear aim and objectives. So again, I think this work is poor in this area. Introduction wise, it's a 50% to 60% marks worth of introduction, depending on what are the actual contents. The contents are very good, actually. They're direct, but I think structure wise, it could be improved. It could have separate subheadings for aim and objectives and methodology. So these are the weaknesses of this work. Moving on to the next part. This part would also constitute as introduction, because it's a bit more detailed discussion on working capital management, which should get you some credits. Some students think it is necessary because they are used to of a literature review for their other works. It is not necessary. It's not a bad thing. It's definitely a positive thing, but I believe not at the expense of the subheadings which were missed in the introduction. It has its own value. So this is a bit of a brief introduction to the topic, and then you can see that it goes on to explaining the ratios as well, which is basically your methodology, although I say that it doesn't say it the way it should, but the contents are there. Maybe presentation and the way it was done was not very good. Overall, if I take that into account as well, the work falls under 60% marks, because it gives all the basics, but it's not exceptional. Moving on to this students gives us data analysis. It picks up all of the data which was extracted from the financial statements and then calculates the ratio. The formulas are given here, but a certain weakness which I would see that with this calculation, before this calculation, I would actually like to see the formula which was used. So I know that 416.8 here is opening inventory. So, but I think it still would be a good thing to give you actual formula with the calculations. I also don't think it's necessary to give this calculation within the body of the report. I would not mark you down. I would mark you down not on the data analysis, but maybe presentation wise and structure wise, you will lose 1 or 2 marks because they are in the not in the right place, or at least a table should have been used for this kind of work. But you should not lose any marks on data calculation. It still it ticks all the boxes. Again, not an exceptional work. It gives the results and so on for the other ratios for other companies, calculates the operating cash cycle for these companies. So what I would like to do is, for example, I would like to check if the student was able to pick up in opening inventory correctly So I'll go to in appendix, and I'll check. I would like to see the income statement and the balance sheet for next. So this is for next, and inventories 416.8, which is opening inventory for 2016, and then closing inventory. So I see that the figures were correctly picked up. So we do that randomly. We don't do every single calculation, but we do check some for every student, just to make sure that students were able to extract the information as we wanted them to. So this is very important. If you don't include your source documents in an appendix, you will lose 5 to 10 marks for your data calculation, because I cannot verify your data, I cannot trust your data, I cannot give you marks for that data. So that is key. Okay, so that's a bit of it ticks the boxes. You will get the marks for the calculations, but you will lose some marks on how you presented the data, which is again part of the data analysis. How you analyze the data the data itself can be analyzed better with better presentation. So I believe it could have been improved, and the structure is different. Then it comes into the analysis part. These students have opted for a structure where they would analyze the company one by one. So first they are doing next, and I believe they are analyzing all of the 3 ratios and the OCC in one go. So if you look at this, the quality of the work was good. The analysis was of good quality. There was some research, and students did show that they understand the wider aspects of the sector and industry. So I think the analysis was of good standard. Then still moved on to the next company, Tesco. They're both retailers. One could say that they're both retailers, so maybe it was not appropriate to use these 2 companies, but they are retailers in 2 different sectors, so we accept that. However, ideally, for your own understanding, you should have only 1 retailer, not 2 retailers. Also, this is a previous work. The brief has changed slightly. We used to say before that you can pick 3 companies from 3 different sectors. Now we actually suggest that it should be a retail, service, and manufacturing. So under that, under current brief, choosing Next and Tesco would not be allowed. Tesco, a bit of analysis of Tesco and graphical presentation, and then comes Taylor Wimpey, a manufacturer, a house builder, with a very different work. Ticking all the boxes, this work I believe is good. Good referencing. What the more 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe few more could have added value, and then we have got all the information which we needed. We could confirm the calculations given in the body. I would like to see these tables in the body and the calculations there. So structurally, this work is different. What you would have noticed that this work has so many weaknesses, but because it ticked all the boxes when it came to executive summary, introduction, and data analysis, and discussion, and then referencing, all of the boxes being ticked, so that brings this student to between 60 and 70 marks. And because the analysis was good, it did push the students a bit more above 70, and this quality of work would get you a 70, around 70. So that is the review of this work. Let's move on to another one. Now A plus and A, don't get confused that A plus is better than A. I couldn't name two documents A, so I had to do A plus and A. So that's the reason. Okay, so we have another student with A, and the word count is 2027. Only 27 extra is fine, but if it's 100 or 200, then we will take notice of that. I think the cover page could be more creative, so it lacks strength in there, a bit of presentation, poor presentation, not poor presentation, but not an exceptional presentation in this case. Moving on to our contents page, a bit more detail, so it's slightly more stronger than the other work we have seen. However, this content page has been typed in. What we would like you to do is create a content page using the function given in the word not type it. So that's something you should be able to do. However, so a slight, it's a slightly poor impression of the work, and everything counts, guys. Your work, actual count, your actual work counts, and the presentation and the impression is business world. All of these things count. So just saying all of these things. Executive summary. Okay, ticks the boxes. Is a 1 page long. It gives everything. Maybe this is a bit too much. I wouldn't give too much. This has taken too much space in comparison to the value it has added. So I would keep it low, and then it only gives the final result. It doesn't really discuss it. So okay, it's an average. Executive summary is definitely less than what we have seen before. So it's between 40 to 50% marks. I would not give it more than 50% out of, so 5 out of 10. So that should give you an idea, because I was hoping to get a bit more on that. All I got was just the final, which does give me something, but you will see, obviously, now you know that other students did give a bit more than this. Then we have introduction, fine, report, I think ticks all the boxes. Methodology is given in a separate section, which is a better presentation than the one we have seen before. I think it could still be improved by having a separate aim. So it starts with the aim. However, objectives are generally given in bullet points because they need to be smart. And I don't believe if you just give a paragraph of objectives, it could be smart, but it wouldn't look smart. So a bit of improvement. I think 60 to 70 marks, depending on how well it reads and if it covers everything. So not a bad one. And just like before, this student has also covered the topic as well. Again, this is because of the impression students get that they have to do some sort of literature review, which is allowed but not needed. This part could be included in introduction, as an introduction to the topic. Generally, students do that. So it does take some of the word count. So you have to take that into account. You would definitely get credit for that. So don't be discouraged. But what it is, when you talk about this topic, this bit can also be merged with when you're discussing the OCC of the companies. So it doesn't really need a separate section for this work because a literature review is not needed. But still, yeah, I leave this to you. I am kind of neutral on that. Yeah, I would prefer, personally, as I'm not neutral, slightly more inclined towards that in this report we should include the topic in this much detail in actual discussion. because then we can refer back to theory when we're looking at our results and how we expand on that. So a good looking graph is there. We can see a variety of OCCs. I think one problem with this graph is that it has everything going in the left hand side direction, even though Maggot has an OCC, positive OCC, so it should be on the other side. So that is not the right presentation of your data. This student has taken a different approach now. The previous students structure their work companies wise, and this student has structured its work ratios wise. So the first ratios is this one, and then they discuss ratios for all three companies, presented the results of all three companies, and then went into quite a bit of discussion about this. So it's quite a lot of depth in this work. There's quite a bit of research as well. So I think the discussion was a really good quality. It did cover many aspects, and it did show that students have a good grasp of the topic. Then we have next ratio, which is our average settlement period of trade receivables. So trade payable, receivable days, how long it takes to collect money from your receivables. And we have a good discussion there as well, and a bit more of visual effects, which always add value to your coursework if it's a business report, and they don't take away any word count. So be creative when it comes to visual presentation. Third ratio given, I believe again the discussion was good, very good. It left a really good impression. I'm not saying that this is the best one, but in comparison to the one we see, this is really good. I think this work needed a conclusion section or recommendation section. Normally students would have at the end a section to do OCC. So this is a big negative in this work, that there is no section on OCC, although the OCC was covered right at the end. But I would have liked to see a section on OCC, which is not given. Also, you can see that it does talk about that. It goes straight to appendices, and I think this is a much better way to show your calculations than the student before tables, and because these are with this one doesn't have the financial statements. Okay, so this could not, I don't think this could be an A 70 plus mark. This has to be less than that. So I think the biggest problem here is that I cannot verify these numbers. How do I check the student have picked up the right opening inventory and closing inventory? Do they expect me to go online and download the annual reports and then go through there? I'm not supposed to, as a marker, I'm not supposed to be doing. Your manager, when they ask you to analyze a company, they would like to see all of the research work with the report, not that they wouldn't need to go and size themselves. So this is not completeness, this is not a good presentation, and I cannot verify your work. So you will lose quite a lot of marks on your calculations. Although if you look at this referencing also, I think it does not follow the referencing protocols. The list should be alphabetical. It's not, so that is a big disadvantage. It will it will show that they don't know, so maybe they will lose marks there too. Yeah, overall, how much would my impression is that this would definitely be in the 60s range rather than in 70s range, because it doesn't tick all of the boxes. And the biggest two things is actually there is an operating cash cycle section, but it's at the start, which doesn't make sense. Yeah, so there are some issues with this work. The major one is referencing list is not alphabetical, and then no source documents given, and some other issues. But there are some good areas in this work. So less than 70 for sure, because of some issues, major issues this work has. Otherwise, the work is really good. Moving on to our a work which would fall maybe C, and let's look at that again. No cover page. There is a cover page, but it's pretty bland. Basically, it doesn't give us anything. The word count is 240, which is acceptable. Okay, so this looks like an executive summary. But does it give anything which an executive summary should do? No, it doesn't. And for that reason, I would not pass this executive summary, because this is simply an introduction. So maximum marks, even though it's a full page, I would give is 3 out of 10. It needs to pass. The previous one which we saw, that would pass. It would get maybe 4 to 5 marks. So 3 marks for maybe introduction and the basics, and then 1 mark that student give our OCC, and then 1 mark maybe for the graph. So it could give them maybe 5, but this would not get more than 3. So it's a fail when it comes to executive summary. Contents page, sufficiently done, that's fine. And then introduction comes. I think the structure wise is very clear. Introduction, aims and objectives, methodology. They do give the basics in there. Maybe not as good as the other 2 students done. So they didn't do the structure well, but they did the contents well. This student did the structure well, but maybe the contents were not as good. But they're still good. So moving on to data analysis and numerical investigation, this student has given us a table for calculation. It looks okay. There's no negative in there. It gives the formula, it gives the number. So this way I would be neutral on this, because it's not really needed. A table for only final results should be fine, and the calculations should be given in the main body. But I would not take a negative impression, because it was done well with the table. Table slightly out, so that there's a bit of improvement which could be done. And then a really good discussion on the inventory days of the 3 companies, I believe. Presentation could be better. Maybe for each company you could give a sub-heading for that. Then the next one, again the same thing, and the third one, and then we have an operating cash cycle. So this is something which was lacking in the previous work. They gave OCC at the start, which doesn't make sense. You need to do the 3 ratios for us to do the OCC. So that is a logical presentation, and this is a logical presentation. We got that. I would prefer that clearly. The more I look at this, I think that the calculation should be given in appendix, and you only should be able to see the results of the OCC here. So 10 days, 21 days, and 21 days would give me a very clear picture of that. There's a big weakness of this work is that it does not have any graphs, not at least in the main body. There may be some students decide to give graphs in appendix, which does not make sense. While the thing is, as a reader, when I am reading the discussion and analysis, it always has to glance at the table to verify your argument, and the graph also help in that sense. I always say that when it comes to data, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So a clear picture. You say that the inventory could have been improved. Well, inventory was improved because of this. So I could have a look at the picture in 1 second, and I can assess that why are you making that argument. So these tables are actually more complicated. You have to actually spend more than few seconds to read what these tables say. So the final results, I would say, should be there rather than the calculations. So a good discussion on this, and maybe the conclusion was not needed because OCC was given. Students chose not to go maybe on the recommendation part in this case. But yes, that is a big presentation wise. It's a big weakness that you cannot create charts. You should be able to create charts. So it would reduce the quality of a business, quality of your report if there are no charts. I'm a big fan of charts, and I do want my students to know how to create charts. So you would lose, you would not get a distinction in presentation if there are no charts there. Referencing given, quite a good numbers there. Websites, books are there, articles are there, so that's fine. Now this is a summary of the data. I don't know where this. It doesn't look like that this data was taken from the annual reports, because it doesn't give that impression. So where was this taken from? I need to know that. So I can't really trust the data without looking at the numbers, looking at the source. So when you, if you do not use actual pages from the annual reports, it still doesn't hurt to say that this page is taken from the annual reports for 2020 for this company. That is better referencing. This one, although it gives the numbers, it doesn't have any source. So that is a big weakness in this work. And the work is, I believe it's just, this one does look like that it was taken from a company's report, but which company is this? This one says Tesco. Okay, this is DFS. Okay, I think a year would have helped. Well, year is there. Okay, so I take my point back. That's fine. This is perfectly fine. I can check the data was taken from. Again, Rolls-Royce says similar situation here, guys. Why the actual statement was not given. So this is the review of the 3 works which passed, and some got a really good marks. Now we will look at the one which you should not follow. Okay, so you should try to avoid making mistakes which these students have done. So this is the fail level of work. Okay, good cover page, guys. At least better than the one we have seen, but the biggest problem here is that the contents page and cover page are on the same page. Why? It's an online submission. You're not killing trees there. You're not printing it out. So keep it on separate pages. Executive summary, not a full page used. Would I pass it? I'll read it through. If it makes sense, I might even pass it because it ticks all the boxes. It gives me the summary of the work. So depending on how it reads, I might even pass it. Or maybe I'll just give it 3. I don't know. Introduction. Well, some introduction is given. Operating cash cycle. Maybe a little bit about the companies, and the topic is given too, and then numerical investigation given. Description of data. Look at it. In the next step, this is calculated by firstly taking the year revenues. The financial statement states that, you see, this kills me when you start describing the data. Just put the data in the table and that is fine. You don't have to describe the data and especially do this. So that was really bad. Data analysis, some work was done. You can see different formatting. Presentation really poor, no tables, no charts. The contents are there, but obviously there are some big mistakes and basic mistakes in this work. Sources, very few. One person repeated 3 times. And no calculations given, no annual reports given. So this is a fail. This work should not pass because it does show that student lacks the basic understanding of the work, and it doesn't tick so many boxes which were given very clearly in your marking scheme. How should the work be structured and written? All you need to do is look at the marking scheme, look at the marking grid, which is part of your coursework brief. So guys, I think you must have learned quite a bit of do's and don'ts. And if you follow this, there's no reason why you shouldn't get a 70% plus mark. So that's the best I could do. There are some other videos. Last week I made another video on that should have been part of this video, but I think there was a need for an earlier release, so that video covers that bit. I hope this helps, and I wish you all the best for your coursework. And yeah, thank you for watching this video.